their applications.
Great.
Supposed to be here.
Got it.
Oh,
Stephanie
there's
Wayne,
John.
and actually, I'll just wait until we have everybody.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, John.
Hey, John.
Yeah. Long time no see, Ed, Stephanie.
John, yep.
It is
Hours.
7 o'clock. Team, I apologize in advance. You will have a less enthusiastic version of me tonight. I will try not to talk too much. On Monday, I had a root canal, and after the following 3 days being in pain, I had to go back in today for a second root canal on a tooth right next door to the first. So talking a lot creates pain. So my family is happy. But I just want you all to know if I seem a little more subdued and or quiet, there's a very valid reason for it. So let's call the meeting of tonight's Community Preservation Committee to session, October 12th, 2023. And the meeting is going to be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board and commission members will be remote. Remote attendance shall count toward quorum. The meeting may be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. So with that, I will take roll call to start us off. I will just go in order of the website today. Jim Lee.
Here.
Good to see you, sir. Amos.
Here.
Al. That was present. I can read lips decently. Ed Hands.
Here.
Dennis Sheedy. Not here yet. He's not in the waiting room, Steph or Wayne?
No, and Meredith is not. Oh, Meredith is now. I looked down. Both of them are.
And so is Dennis, yeah.
Oh, there we go. We're taking roll call. Hi, Meredith. Dennis, how are you? We are on to you, believe it or not, Dennis, for roll call.
I am here.
Excellent. John Ventresco.
Here.
Amanda Varela.
Here.
Meredith Keach.
Here.
And Tom Broussard is here as well. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for being here, and hope all has been well. We have the minutes from the regular session to vote and accept. The minutes dated September 14th, 2023. But before I ask for motion, did anybody have any questions, thoughts, or issues with the minutes as presented?
I didn't notice the comments that we had on the 501c3 in related to Oak Ames Hall, and whether or not that'll be taxable transaction.
I think fair. I think if we can add those to the minutes for this week, maybe it was because that wasn't an actual topic of conversation. I can't remember, or was it a letter of interest update? Not sure.
There was ways of that.
I don't think we got a letter of interest.
We have the letter of interest that we're reviewing tonight.
Yeah.
Right. So Al, if it's okay, assuming we accept those minutes dated September 14th, I would simply ask Kathy to ensure in this particular go around we reference and I would ask you, Al, to ask the applicant about the 501c3. Thank you, status. I always get those confused. So we can bring that topic up for tonight's discussion if that's acceptable.
Sounds good.
Awesome. With that, I'll take a motion to accept the minutes dated September 14th, 2023.
Move it.
Second.
Ventresco Sheedy. Going around the screen I have here, Jim Lee is once again first. Just
always, yeah.
Awesome. Al Benson.
Aye.
Ed Hands.
Aye.
Amanda Varela.
Aye.
Amos Kedem.
Aye.
John Ventresco.
Aye.
Meredith Keach.
Aye.
Dennis Sheedy.
Aye.
Tom Broussard is an aye as well. Thank you all. Unanimous. Tonight, team, we have a couple of topics. One is the CPA application. So this is the after the letter of interest, we ask the applicant to submit a draft. This is the review of the draft. If need be, we can ask them to submit a final application if we feel that there might be commentary that should be considered or included, recommendations to provide, and advice given. Those two items for the draft application review tonight are the community garden improvements and the conservation property signage requests. We then have the first step of review for the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall, the letter of interest review. This would be a discussion regarding the materials that have been submitted, the future process consideration for this project, and whether or not at this particular point in time, we would recommend a draft application being submitted. There's a lot of information that was submitted in the packet. I hope you've all had an opportunity to read those comments, the responses. If you haven't, you can call it up maybe on a side screen and have it handy just for reference. It may be referenced as we walk through the discussion on that particular letter of interest. We then have a Pond Street Island update regarding a purchase and sale being signed and a recommendation to or a vote to recommend that the select board amend the memorandum of agreement that currently had a date of expiration of 12/31/22, if everybody recalls that business from prior year. So the trustees, in their efforts working to get the P&S finalized, have finally been able to get that over the goal line, but they're asking for that. I would probably consider it a legal implication to have the MOA extended, which I can understand their request. We do have membership dues, our annual Community Preservation Coalition dues discussion. Then there'll be a brief update on the MBTA community zoning. The reason why that affects us, that's an affordable housing impact. If you are a town or community or city with an actual MBTA station, and I'll probably get this wrong, so I would encourage you all to listen intently for that section. But if you are in that community, town, city with a station, you have to demonstrate X percentage of growth in affordable housing or affordable housing stock maintenance. If you are a town, city, or community one removed from that, you also have obligations. So I thought it would be appropriate, since we focus one of our core tenets on affordable housing, to understand how these MBTA regulations might impact us or will impact us. Hopefully I didn't butcher that, Stephanie or Wayne, too badly, but it was a decent intro for when we get to you folks.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I will bring us to our first matter of business, which is the community gardens application. I'm just gonna scroll to it. This is the community gardens improvements. Bear with. The total estimated project cost, I assume, is still $4,882 as in the application. We do have Jen Carlino. Great to see you again. Mike Spadea, and I thought I saw Matt. Yep, there's Matt Soldner. Thank you all for joining. So with that, I am probably do a poor job of reading in. As I mentioned, I prefer not to talk as much tonight, but I'll pass it over to the applicant just to give us an update, maybe if anything has changed, or a very brief overview of the application and anything you'd want the CPC to specifically consider.
Good evening. See a lot of familiar faces there. I'm Matt from the Agricultural Commission. We have sent out the application to you, and I believe everybody probably got the little garden renovation and expansion. And it's a small amount of money, but it's needed if you can see the pictures of the slowly deteriorating structures. There we go. And we do have a new addition, which is the greenhouse, which was built for us as an Eagle Scout project by Max Montero. And the whole cost has been broken down for you for all the supplies with a 20% contingency fee, because God knows everything is going up in price.
Agreed.
So, and we're gonna be doing all the work ourselves. So there's no outside cost there. And if, we want to expand, we want to update, and we want a good season next year for gardening,
Sure.
which you guys can't give us, but we can still hope for. So everything is there. If anybody has any questions, I'll try and answer as best I can. And
Anybody have any questions? I know it's pretty straightforward. Credit to the applicant for submitting incredible detail regarding the cost structure. Appreciate the inclusion of the contingency. Matt, I think as you mentioned, if you wait a day, I think you just lost a couple bucks on that contingency.
yes,
Because of costs going up. But I would ask the CPC team if they have any questions.
I just have a comment. I'm 100% for this. I think, in today's day and age, we have so much technology and so forth, where this is just, with no pun intended, getting down to the root. I think one of the biggest things that have come across Easton in the last few years is our way of going back to farming, whether it be small or large, small being this, Langwater being large. I mean, I just think this is just, I can't say enough about it. Again, just 100% for this, and commend your group for moving this forward. And just let me end with CPC. We have such large applicants of money that this is no disrespect to the 50,000, but in comparison, when we can do some of these smaller projects, I think it balances us out. And this is one of those balances that, again, I totally endorse.
Couldn't agree more. Sometimes 5 or 10 grand in the right place makes a big impact for
Absolutely.
a lot of use and a lot of people. So well said, John. Team, any other thoughts or questions?
I have a question for Matt.
yes.
Matt, who this garden reach to? Who are the people that work with this?
Who are the gardeners or who are on the committee? We have approximately 20 gardeners. We got 20 plots, 15, 20 by 20 and 10 by 20s. So some of the ones who wanted 20 by 20 couldn't get those, so they ended up with 2 10 by 20s for the same amount of space. So we have approximately 20 gardeners down there. We all try and work together. We share ideas. We try and share some of the workload. And it's just a good group of people who work together to have a good time. I think we lost Amos there.
How he operates, Matt. He asks the question, drops the bomb, and then steps off. And yeah. You got to watch out for him. He might be back later with another question. So, hold. But I think, Matt, you answered the question that Amos was getting at when he joins. If we could just maybe see where he fell off. Matt, out of curiosity, how the space is currently 20 plots. Is that space governed by that's just what we use, or is there more demand, and do you have more space that you could use more plots, for example?
Well, that one of the things that we want to do is to expand the plot, the garden itself, and create more plots. We've started collecting some wooden boxes to try and do some raised gardens, and we're gonna put those hopefully out to the side. We're hoping to expand and maybe bring in 8 more plots somewhere in there, maybe a few more. Sure. But we just want to. People are asking, and we want to be able to provide it.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more with the sentiment expressed. I can't think of anything that better illustrates how small dollars can make a large impact. Obviously, Easton is a right to farm community. We have some incredible farms, and you know, I know Langwater Farm and Kevin Dwyer, for example, donated some effort. But there's just so many examples of green space and agricultural roots in Easton. So if you feel as you go through time, I would probably echo what John was expressing in his sentiment. You know, think of us. If there are small dollars that can make large impacts, those are exactly the type of things we look for. So glad that you reached out. Appreciate you thinking about what you all do, the stewardship you all provide. With that, if there's no other questions or comments, and just in the interest of moving along, I would ask the applicant if the CPC so chose, and instead of asking you to come back for a final draft, a final application review, would you be opposed if the CPC took this draft application as your final application and we voted on this particular item now, and that way didn't have to call you back again? And I would ask the CPC that same question if you were okay with that acceleration of our process.
If this would work, if it would work, and we didn't have to come back again, and you know, you gave us the recommendation, that's fine with me. I know that one other member of the committee, I think I saw his name out there.
Bill Matthews, I did just promote him to panelist. I didn't realize he was part of your group.
Oh, Bill Matthews?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I would move that this be voted on and moved to the select board.
So essentially, Jim has moved to include and recommend this particular application onto the appropriate warrant. Is there a second for that?
A second.
Second.
That was, I think, a three-way tie, but Ventresco raised his hand in addition to verbalizing. So I will give that as the nod. So that's Lee and Ventresco. Hearing no objections to this accelerated process, I'll go around the horn, going reverse this time with Dennis Sheedy,
Yes.
Meredith Keach,
Aye.
John Ventresco,
Yes.
Amanda Varela,
Aye.
Ed Hands,
Abstain.
Al Benson,
Aye.
Jim Lee,
Aye.
Tom Broussard is an aye. And Stephanie, could you just make sure Amos isn't waiting in the wings to join?
I did check. I just checked a minute ago.
Okay.
There he is. He's back.
So this is the votes held. So it has been approved for inclusion. But Matt, if it's okay, I do just want to see if Amos had his question answered, just out of respect for the ask.
Okay.
If he joins. There he is. Amos, how are you? Welcome back.
Sorry, I got disconnected and it took a while for Stephanie to get me in.
That's okay. Sorry. Thanks for coming back on. So we did move along in business and vote to include and recommend this article, but I did want to pause before we moved on in case you did not hear all of Matt's answer to your question and you wanted to hear the rest of the answer.
Yeah, I wanted to know what is the reach and if there is any plans to reach to youth on this issue of agriculture and the gardens.
Great question. Matt, if I could impose upon you to repeat and then add.
Well, we're hoping to expand so we can get more people. Now, did he say youths?
You,
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we did have an Eagle Scout who built the greenhouse for us, and we'd love to be able to get young people down there to do some work. It's difficult during the summer. A lot of them go away. They, don't want to do, I'm not saying they don't want to do anything, but they would rather be with friends instead of working in a garden.
Mhm.
But, we do welcome them and would look forward to having them there.
Awesome. Matt, I don't know if this can be done, but I just wonder, and if I lead you in the wrong direction and the answer is no, I will take that blame. But I do appreciate that when Mr. Getchell was presenting about the playgrounds and the development of learning spaces at RO, that part of the project, if I remember correctly, was about growing things. And Meredith, team, you might remember better than I do. And I guess my question, Matt, is I wonder if you couldn't impose on Mr. Getchell to include just a small blurb about what you folks have to offer in conjunction with his, I guess, also wanting to increase desire to learn how to grow things and maintain things. And maybe some parents that have kids in school will learn a little bit about what you all do. And I don't know, maybe that's just a way of outreach to connect the youth with what you do, with what the schools are also trying to accomplish.
Would like us to include that in the proposal that we have. Is that what you,
No, just separately in due course. I guess what I'm trying to say is know that there is somebody else out there in this world who deals with kids every day, who also is really focused on ensuring they appreciate how things grow, how you plant things, and how you have to take care of things.
yeah, no, we could put that word out.
Sure. Might go nowhere, might go somewhere. You never know. Could be an
You'll
awesome field trip.
You'll now be hosting a class at EMS, Matt. And RO.
Just
Every Wednesday.
for everybody's knowledge, before Matt became the chairman of the Agricultural Commission, our very first chairman worked very closely with Chris on that garden and did speak to the kids, et cetera, et cetera. So it's something that we have done in the past, and thank you for the suggestion to get back with it now that the garden is coming back up at the school complex.
Sounds good.
We should probably get one of the other gardeners, Remy, to talk with the kids, because he's the one that has the most success every year. More so than the rest of us.
That's true.
And almost the other comments that Matt had shared was that there were 20 plots and they're looking to expand by an additional 8 plots. So in terms of reach, there seems to be a desire and appeal by the community to engage. And it feels like the team is responding to that, trying to improve their facilities and create more opportunity for more people to engage.
Yeah. My vote is yes. So.
Good. That makes it unanimous, except for Ed's abstention. Awesome. Thank you, Amos. Team, again, thank you all for your stewardship of that asset for the community. I know somebody, a friend personally, who is there, and I have enjoyed some of the bounty that has come forth. So it's just pretty neat to see her passion and her energy talking about it. And so just know that it makes a difference in people's lives, and it certainly gave me a benefit a few times as well.
All right,
awesome.
Thank you.
Next up, and I will stop the screen share so I don't scroll and give people vertigo, is the conservation properties signage. Get to that.
Hey, you guys.
I can.
All right.
All right. I think I got it.
I
think I've got it handy. I'll share my screen again. Okay. So for the application, we have in this draft, the amount requested is $54,395. There is expected to be $10,000 worth of non-CPA funds. The total project cost, therefore, $64,395. I think we probably all have this wording, but there are various conservation properties. There is a very lengthy list, and again, trying not to use all my words tonight. Each sign's about $3,100. We're looking at approximately 17 signs to replace. Many of the signs have rotted. There were images and pictures that I think do a lot more justice to my description, but I'm sure all of us have seen many of these signs in their current state. The format we're looking to shift to matches the rest of the signage that we have seen across town. So there'll be some good uniformity there. There was a comprehensive list provided, so appreciate that by the applicant of all the locations, the signs. The other examples would include the actual proposal for the 54,395. I'm assuming the $10,000 is that related to contingency, or since the proposal is 54,395.
We only put down a certain number of signs, and then the commission would pay for 3 of the signs. So that's the 10,000 to make up.
Makes complete sense.
As a match,
Thank you so
yeah.
much. If you folks went through the deck, you'll see the signs, the size, 4-inch posts, 2-inch gap, 54-inch wide sign. I think this was a great example of what it could look like versus what it does now. And these type of slides always amaze me at the level of granularity and detail required for a formal bid, so that we know it is 1/4 inch, 2-inch, all that good stuff. Team, does anybody have any questions or thoughts for the applicant? And certainly for the applicant, if there is new news or I did an injustice in explaining the application, please, I'll pause and let you all jump in.
So I just have a quick question. Jennifer, so the 54,000, that is included in the price that you said the commission's paying for 3 signs?
The 10,000 is the commission's. So the total cost of the whole project is the 65,000. The
Okay.
commission will put in 10, and we're asking for the 54 or 55.
So I'm assuming you've checked with any type of grants like we got with all the town signs now, and that's been depleted, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's been completed.
Yeah.
Yep, we do have to go out to bid, but we expect these will still be the lowest bidder. They were the low bidder at the last project.
I'm 100% for this also. I think especially when we got the signage, if I'm understanding, we didn't pay anything for the signs. So to match this up, I think this has really been, I mean, when you drive around town, it just feels good, looks good. It looks great. So I'm 100% for this also.
Anybody else have any questions?
I do. Is this, so it said that 5 have already been replaced. I assume that's with the new model sign. Is this the rest of them? Will it be uniform, or will there be more that need replacing eventually?
The 5 that had already been replaced were done in 2019 and 20, I think. So that's the old style.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually those would need to be replaced.
And those are not included in this initial ask, correct?
Correct. They're brand new signs, so it seemed wasteful to change those right away.
Fair.
Yeah.
Good question. Anybody else?
What's the warranty on these? Is there a warranty on the signage?
That's a good question. I would have to go back to the sign company and ask them. I can do that for you.
Okay, that would be appreciated.
Yep.
Just looking to see if it was included.
Yeah.
I don't remember that, but it.
Yeah, I don't see it.
So if I may jump in, usually when the town enters into a contract, there's a 1-year warranty. But there is a life to the signs. And I want to say it's 15 years. We can double check that. And that's for the surface. And then they reapply. They can go in and reapply the facing. to it. So the materials that are used, it's an aluminum material. They're on posts. They're in granite posts. They're pretty indestructible from a just normal wear and tear standpoint.
Okay. John, do you feel like that question would hold up our ability to, again, expedite this particular application in terms of process?
No, especially after what Stephanie just said. No, I don't have any problem with I wouldn't want to hold it up for that.
Okay.
I would like the answer to it though.
Sure. Jennifer, if you could just share that with Stephanie or Wayne, we'll make sure we get it out to the CPC team.
Yep, absolutely.
And if there's no further discussion, questions, debate, then what I would do, and I'll ask again the consideration of the CPC team members as well as the applicant, if we are all collectively comfortable with expediting the process and taking this particular draft review application and making it final. And if there is nobody opposed to that, then I would take a motion to include and recommend this particular item for the warrant article to the select board.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
There was two so moved and a second. I'll give Ed Hands the clear second. It was Sheedy's lips I saw, but I'm not sure if somebody else got in faster. So I'll go with Sheedy and Ed, and if that causes a ruckus, I will fall on the sword later on. And I'll now go around in the order to vote. Jim Lee.
Aye.
Al Benson.
Aye.
Ed Hands.
Aye.
Amanda Varela.
Aye.
John Francesco.
Aye.
Meredith Keach.
Aye.
Dennis Sheedy.
Aye.
Amos Kedem.
Aye.
Tom Broussard is an aye as well. So great to have both of these approved and recommended for inclusion in the warrant. I think, folks, as you all know, in terms of for you as applicants, the select board will also have a vote to recommend. The finance committee will also have a vote to recommend. I would keep your eyes open for when those meetings happen in the future in case you want to be present. Please know that I will be present for those meetings and will serve as your proxy to explain and help the respective committees understand why the CPC voted to recommend. But I will do the best justice I could. You are always welcome to join yourselves as well. Awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, I will stop the share once again. Back up. So it looks like we have the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall letter of interest to review. So this is the very first step in terms of the hall's review. Stephanie, is there anybody that will be joining us from the hall?
I have someone named Oaks Ames Memorial Hall.
It might be
That
them.
person could.
You also have Kristen Stone, Stephanie.
I saw, okay, there she is. Okay, and I have promoted both to panelist.
Well, we did get the hall.
Yes.
So they seem to
We
both
also
be...
have Tim Hurley in the audience. I don't know if he's also here for the hall. So
Yeah,
if he-
he's on their board.
and could raise his hand, I will promote him as well. Ed, did you say you saw the hall show up as a panelist? Because I'm not.
Yeah, there's a picture of the hall.
There's a picture of the hall.
And Tom thought he was
that's
going to
me.
be the quietest. Oh,
Why
it's
can't
Fred.
I see that? There we
It's
go.
me.
There he
Yeah,
is.
I'll be speaking this evening, right?
Okay, well, I'm going to rename you to who you are
Sure.
for the record.
And are you going to promote Tim Hurley stuff?
He did not raise his hand to be
Okay.
included.
Yeah, I asked Kristen to join me for any help I might need in numbers. So she is kindly made herself available for that.
Excellent. Nice to see you,
And
Fred.
Tim
Good to
did
see you,
just
Kristen.
raise his hand, so. I'm sorry, Tom. Tim did just raise his hand, so he's in the process of joining us.
Sounds good. You can promote him. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
Tim, just confirming you're joining as a member of the Board of Trustees to.
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yes.
Welcome. Good to have you. Kristen, like I said, good to have you. And Fred, good to have you as well.
Thank
So
you.
I think if that's all you expect, Fred, from your team to join, then we can get started.
All right.
CPC team members, you should have in your packet, beginning on page 29, a letter of interest to apply for CPA funds. The estimated budget that is being requested in this particular go-round is 4 to 5 million. There is some matching funds that have been listed in the amount of 500,000, 200,000 from the Mass Cultural Fund, Facilities Fund, 50,000 from the Mass Preservation Projects Fund, 250,000 from private foundations. I think the application is pretty straightforward after that. The only thing I'll note in the letter of interest is just, it looks like there was some old information at the bottom of it. The last second to last paragraph, unitalicized, it's a projected 8 to 10 capital budget includes soft costs and contingencies. Again, I go back to the $4 to $5 million ask, and the dates are the prior application dates and not current. So it's not the May 2023 annual town meeting. It would be the May 2024 town meeting. So I think with that, you'll see that there was also a discussion just in terms of items that had already been referenced at the last CPC meeting where we held in terms of application review. So those items, again, thank you, Wayne, Stephanie, for working with me to compile them. If the team sees any that are missing, this is a perfect opportunity to raise our hand. You'll also see a list and series of questions that were asked of the applicant in preparation for this. And hopefully it's designed to expedite some of the issues that the CPC raised and as important and critical for the application to proceed. And so those have been pre-asked and the answers provided. So with that, I'll pause. For the applicant, if you have any either new information that is different from the letter of interest, other considerations that you'd like to have before the CPC begins its deliberation, discussion, and then asks its questions, I'm happy to give you a few minutes just for you folks to update us as needed.
Yeah, I would I'd just like to say we did some comps, okay, for the marketing, and I don't know if that was explicitly mentioned in the application, but we have done comps with 8 different historic locations, and I'd like to submit that information at some point, but we have done that research, and it's quite a range of locations and types of buildings. And basically no one, some have advantages, some don't on us, but across the board, we don't have anyone that meets the criteria better than in all categories as opposed to us. So there has been some good vetting on different types of competitors, if you will, at varied locations, from Rehoboth up to Gloucester. So we've done some serious looking.
Okay. I'll now let the CPC team members ask questions and certainly begin debate or discussion about the topic. Does anybody want to start us off? Al?
This is a question for Mr. Ames.
Yep.
I was interested in determining if you have a current 501c3 status from the IRS, and how many years back do you have that?
Oh gosh, many years back, and it's never been interrupted. We've had it for every single day during those last years.
Okay, it wouldn't be a problem then just putting that in the packet then? It has a major tax implication.
Not at all. No, it's very important.
That would, yeah,
it's very
that would be
important
great.
because it's one of our leaders to get people to donate that were 501c3. So we never had a day's lapse in that.
Good. I tried to find it in the IRS, but we were unsuccessful, so that may have been COVID related.
Well, what that is that it wasn't listed because there was a one time they called us and said, we're going to have to suspend you because we haven't gotten tax returns. Now, I won't say who our tax return person was, but he did this to a number of nonprofits in Easton. Just said he would do stuff, charged it for us, and didn't do it. So got back to the IRS, and they said, don't worry about it. You're reinstated from where the notice came. And as to penalties, we paid no penalty. So we had no loss of our tax status, and we didn't have to pay any penalty. So
okay, that's great. As also one other point in regards to that, the 501c3, you wouldn't mind certifying or indicating that you're going to make every effort to keep that up to date so it will not revert to a taxable entity?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that is kept up to date we have a very good accountant now who's honest.
Okay.
That makes a big difference to get an honest accountant. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, Fred. I appreciate that it was an accountant who didn't file it. I have to say, I believed, and I'll try to find it while we're on here, that you did lose your status for a period of time.
No, did not.
Check.
Did not.
And the reason I think it's important that Al raised that, so I appreciate it, is I would ask Stephanie and Wayne what the implications are if we contribute funds to an entity that loses its status. Does that cause any implications or issues as we go throughout the project? And not for an answer for today if you don't have it handy, but something to research.
I can give you an answer on that. If an entity loses its 501(c)(3) status, it becomes taxable, and there is some likelihood that the money that is given to the entity during that period will be deemed taxable. So if you gave it $5 million in this instance, we would lose approximately 25%, which would take it down to let's say $3,750,000, something on that order. So definitely, it's something we want to avoid.
Well, I just to underscore this was a very unusual situation. And this person did it to a number of nonprofits in town. And he's well known to just about everybody here. But I'm not going to mention his name. I don't think that really adds anything. Yeah, no, we were lied to. And plus we were ripped off. We paid for services not provided.
And so I guess what we're trying to impress upon you, Fred, so first of all, at least for the IRS, your status was revoked on May 15th of 21. And you were reinstated on October 15th.
Well, as I spoke directly with them, they said your 501c3 is good for the whole year. If anybody goes back, it's fine. What happens was status is not updated until it gets to the penalty phase. And I said, why? And they said, well, that's just the way it is. If somebody goes and looks it up, they see this information, which is not up to date. And that's just probably what you ran into. We got to the penalty phase finally, and COVID, you're right, COVID was a big delayer in this. The IRS is absolutely swamped. And we weren't assessed any penalty given the facts of the case that what happened and the size and the sort of the insignificance of our organization to the IRS, quite frankly. But again, I have to stress, we have a very good accountant now. who's on top of it. And certainly, you know, it's burnt once, twice shy. I think you'll understand that as far as that goes. I never want to appear to be in that situation again. And we never had. So we just ran into a bad actor is what happened.
Can I jump in for just a second?
Sure.
We were a foundation who dealt with the same Fred, with that same individual. So
yeah,
the IRS is not fast to move. If you find an error and you say, whoa, hey, we had exactly the same situation. I know it was with the same individual. It can get rectified pretty quickly, but that lapse in time likely was just on the IRS behalf, paperwork not being filed. And then it's like filing paperwork with FEMA. It takes you about 6 months to rectify anything. But the initiation at first blush, you say, oh my God, what happened here? What do we need to do? We take a change the next day, and then you got to wait 6 months. So we dealt with exactly the same. It was not an error on our behalf, and we're just a little fledgling memorial foundation. But you know, I can support what happened there is because it happened to the same thing to us.
Great,
Appreciate
thank you.
that.
Yeah.
I guess
Am I
for me,
recalling-
Meredith, is that the ultimate responsibility, and I just want to be upfront. When to Al's point, and this is just the way the world works, if we give $10 to $15 million worth of Bennett ultimately, or 4 to 5, and that status changes, then that means it becomes taxable. And we just ask that stewardship is to make sure it gets filed every year. I do the same. I have annual filings that I'm responsible for. I get it. And other people prepare them, but I can't absolve myself of responsibility to ensure that they get completed and done. That's all.
Well, Tom, I recognize that very much. The buck on all things at the hall stops with me. And I had misplaced trust in this individual. But again, you're right. Ultimately, I should have checked. So mea culpa in this individual. And you're right. Ultimately, I should have checked. So mea culpa.
Somebody's recording or
It's
playing it back.
Tim needs to be on mute. Am I recalling correctly that there was also an issue with filings with the Secretary of State, which would be separate and apart from the accountant?
Yeah, very minor issue. Yeah.
What was it, Fred?
Has it been rectified?
Just to change who are the officers and things like that. You know, and Tom I think very constructively pointed that out to me, and it was changed. But quite frankly, is one thing I wasn't aware of. I know that I file a statement every year to the state as to who the officers are, addresses, and all that. So that we've always done. And that was something I just wasn't aware of. So thank you.
But Tom, may I ask a question?
Of course.
Fred, the Secretary of State, I believe, is to whom you file the annual reports, letting them know who the directors are and everything. But you do need to file with the Attorney General's office a Form PC.
Yes, and we have that, and we have an Attorney General's office number, account number. Yes. So we're all tied into that process. Yes.
Fred, the only thing I'd recommend is I believe that you're still have not corrected for the listing of the officers.
That is very odd. That is very odd. Okay, because I've made I do not know what to tell you on that. That looks different. That doesn't look right. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
But that, yeah.
May I make a comment, Tom?
Sure.
Unfortunately, I have experience with this because of the Lions and the same issue. And what is important, and I have highlighted this to the members of the Lions Club, is to have a procedure in place, an orderly form for that institution, in this case, the whole, for reviewing, and even if you delegate the actual filing to someone else, you have to double check, and it needs to be in your calendar, and it needs to be a person on your side, on the whole side, that does the diligent work of checking that the filing is done. The Lions Club also had a problem with that for a
Yeah.
month or two, and it's something that is as simple as putting a procedure in place and respecting that procedure.
Okay, I think that's good advice. And again, the corrections were made, but I guess they just didn't stick or whatever. So anyway, I took notice of what was said about that and acted on it, but I guess I didn't press the right final button or something or whatever. So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. John?
Yeah, hi, Fred.
Oh, hi, John.
Couple things. First, the last 2 or 3 years, I'm not sure who's doing it, but you've done a great job promoting the hall.
Thank you.
As opposed to maybe 5 to 10 years ago, where it was you just never heard of the hall. It was just the big historical building on the hill. To the business plan, it's a preliminary business plan, correct?
Well, yes, it's the first one we've done. Yes. Yeah, in that sense, it's preliminary.
So once you get the final, so there'll be a final on this, or is this pretty close to what you want to submit?
This is pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, certainly we'll take recommendations without a doubt, but this is pretty much it. Yeah.
So the second question would be, how are you going to implement it? How are you going to implement that business plan?
I don't know. I don't know the question. I don't understand.
So you have a preliminary or a final business plan now. So how is that going to be implemented? So you can have a plan, but unless it goes forward, who is going to be in charge? Who's going to be the head person on that?
The head person,
so that it all gets done.
I mean, the construction is finished.
I'm sorry.
At what time point are you talking about? At what point in time are you talking about?
Well, I mean, what is in that business plan? There must be. Is it going to be 6 months, a year, 5 years? What's the goal?
The goal, I mean, what we're allowing for now is 2 years to complete the construction, and during the last 6 months, there will be hirings done. A new executive director. I will be stepping down. And then we'll also hire an event person who will be in charge of what goes on during the day of these events. And there'll be many more events. And then there will be a salesperson, basically. So, and that has to be decided. And that's when the salary increase. And we're in the process of setting aside funds so we can do that for the 2 years we are closed without any rental income coming in. So to answer your question, it's really about 1.5 years into the construction when we see the end in sight, where we're going to shift gears.
So you wouldn't want to start that like within the next 6 months, or?
Well, we've already raised about 90 to 100,000. We're a couple of years ahead of our plan, actually, to have funds for closing. So we would anticipate collecting, and we have 3 or 4 more years to do it, 250,000 to pay for our expenses, to pay for part-time salaries of people we're holding on at halftime, and then to fund for the first 2 years of operations, people that we're going to pay higher salary, like the executive director. I've done it for free for 44 years. So that's going to have to be, that's going to have to be added in. And this has all been calculated. And plus, I believe I forget the year exactly, but we will have a sinking fund in place and we will be able to cover that. Now that is approximately $27,804 per year set aside for future maintenance projects, so that we don't have to come back to the town to keep asking for money like we've had to do under the present condition. So we've really looked at all the aspects of what's coming up, how much money we're going to need, and how to start getting it. And we're on track. We're about into year 1.5, and we haven't even gotten to the official start of it. So it's in fact, that is very hard money to raise because it is for operating costs. It's just cash. It's not bricks and mortar you can see. So there are much fewer places that have operating grants. They're quite rare. So I've had to go to private donors to raise that, and I'll probably continue to go to private donors or wherever I can find it, but it is exceedingly more rare than capital grants.
So
And you can see why. It's sort of feel there's a moral hazard they feel, right? You know.
So I wear a few hats here. I look at this as not only a CPC member, a historical commission, and I'm going to be blunt, as a taxpayer. So you'll be leaving in what, 2 years? How do you know? How would we know the transition? Whoever's going to step into your shoes, which you've been doing for
44 years.
40 years at no charge. How are you going to find someone to take on what you've done and the commitment?
Well, it's nice to feel appreciated, John. Thank you. This is going to be a process that takes a while. And, you know, the plan is to have 4 directors appointed by the town, and we want to get them on board as quickly as possible to be involved in that process of selecting an executive director. We're going to need all the help we can on that. It's going to be a real task to do that, to get someone we feel would be up to the job, given the salary also. You know, it's not going to be a way high salary. So we can find somebody super talented, but they would not have any interest in being paid that amount. So yeah, no, this is going to be a real whole town cooperative effort, I hope, to get the new executive director who is more suited to the new operation. And God, you know, I'm 71, John. You know, it's time I went out to pasture. So anyway, but certainly I will be around if anybody needs any historical information. So I'll be there.
Mr. Ames,
Yes.
would it be possible to get your thoughts on, with all your experience, to put together a job description for that executive vice president? I think that you know, you're carrying 95% of it in your head. That if that got down on paper, to be really helpful, and that way, you know, you'll make sure that all the things that you need to have done in this changing environment will be addressed by the new person.
Yes, I definitely want to do that, because there are things that I do that trustees could do, and so I want to parse those out, because I think if I put everything that I do down in the job description, someone's going to say, "Forget it, that's too much." So,
yeah, even generic categories would be, you know, helpful in that way.
Well, yes, and we've got to do that. Like we're working on really taking a good look at the rental agent and what she does. Our current rental agent does some marketing. She does other things. In the new organization, we want to have it more separated like that. You know, instead of having people that sort of do a little of this, a little of that, a lot of that. So yeah, that's very much part of the process. Yes.
I have some questions about the scope of the project. And I think anybody who's been on the board at the same time I have will not be surprised to hear this, because I've said it every time it's come up. I have pretty grave concerns that, you know, that work being done to maintain the economic viability of the hall as a business concern, to me, is outside the purview of what is permissible under the CPA. I mean, obviously, we can't let the hall fall to the ground. It has to be preserved. I am entirely supportive of that, and was entirely supportive of the emergency repairs and the repairs we've had over the years. But when we get started, you know, I know the board as a whole has requested the business plans and to understand the corporate governance and who's, you know, keeping an eye on things. I understand that completely, because it would be a lot of the town's money. But to me, you know, when I see a 60-lot parking lot, that's not about preservation. That's about the town's parking needs. And I have both practical concerns that would not pass at town meeting, if coupled with needed improvements. And again, I also understand that the elevator would be something that would be required, and obviously accessibility is extraordinarily important. But to me, it would be very important to understand, of the 4 to 5 million, which of these asks are to maintain the structural integrity of this historic building and are therefore unquestionably preservation uses versus the things like the parking, to some extent air conditioning, although I'm a big fan of it, which things are you're trying to do for the economic viability of the hall as a hall, not as a historic treasure.
Well, yes, and I know your thoughts on the parking lot from previous meetings. And though that is part of the viability issue with the hall is the parking. And, as we get busier, it's only going to be something we really need to do. Now, the air conditioning and the heating, yes, that's part of improving the building, but it's also for improving business. So it's again, you have things like that are both. You have the elevator, which really is a capital improvement, but again, it is to increase business. So there's not really that much of a line.
I'm not concerned with the viability of your business necessarily.
I'm
I'm a supporter of the hall and wish it the best.
Yes.
I'm concerned that legally it's not an appropriate use of CPA funding if it is to improve the profitability of the hall and not preserve the historic building.
Well, one thing leads to the other. We've got to pay people to bring people in to rent it and people to keep it up. So the economic vibe, well, as I said in my foreword, we're two things. One, we're a nonprofit, but on the other hand, and we give out discounts all the time. Like there's the Chamber of Commerce is meeting up there right now, and we gave them a sizable discount for their fundraising dinner. That's going on. That's why I have the tie on. I have to go back and move tables. So it's really two things, and that's what makes it hard for people to understand. Now the business, okay, that the CPA will fund it by fact of what it does is necessary for the preservation of the building. The people that work there that bring in the money, which is then used to set aside the sinking fund, which is going to be used so that the town hopefully never need to spend another dime for maintenance or capital repairs for a long time. So that's sort of one thing is the other, really. What you need one for the other. The business thing is what helps with the preservation of the hall and the maintenance of it, specifically in that sinking fund, which is very important.
Thank you,
So
Fred.
I hope.
Ed, I'll get to you in just 1 second. Amanda, I think you asked a very valid question. Stephanie, could I ask you to engage legal counsel just to ascertain with a smaller project whether or not the parking lot becomes too large of a percentage of this particular project? And whereas it is acceptable to be included in a larger preservation project, I know we've already got opinions on that, but whereas the ask is now cut in half, if the parking lot has become too large a percentage of activity, I think Amanda raises some very valid questions. I will also ask Amanda, I do want to ask Stephanie to ask the general question as well, as to whether or not what I'll call amenities and nice to haves, not have to haves. Heat to me is a have to have because the pipes would break, but air conditioning is not a have to have. If we could just ask again the scope with the council, now that the ask has been cut in half, the percentage of those particular items that Amanda has appropriately raised a hand on may have pushed this too far into nice to haves or inappropriate utilization of CPA funding as opposed to have to haves.
I think there's very little that isn't have to have. The air conditioning is essential, is part of increasing rentals which increases income, which increases contributions to the sinking fund, which is part of keeping the historic structure in good shape. So I think that,
Fred, thank you. I appreciate that.
You understand the relationship. So it makes it sort of a hard question to answer because one thing becomes the other.
I think we do, but I just need to ask you to appreciate Amanda's commentary.
No, I certainly
whether or not you need more amenities to attract more people may not necessarily be the purview of the CPC. That might be a responsibility that you as an applicant, if the CPC decides it, has to go and raise on your own. I think what Amanda is pointing out on one end of the spectrum is a purer look at the fundamental preservation of the actual building itself. And I again, as the person who wants to know that business plan to understand long-term continuity, I can see the other side of the spectrum as well. So I'm just giving respect to the points that Amanda raised, asking Stephanie to connect with council, and not saying it has to be A or B at this point, but I think we want to be more informed. And I can appreciate a CPC team member asking that question and also wanting to look at it from that perspective. Ed, you had a hand. I'm sorry, Ed had a hand raised, and then we'll go to Al.
Yeah, Ed did have a hand raised. I agree with Amanda on the parking lot issue. I think that's something that may be outside of our scope. You could make a case, which you're not doing very effectively, that the air conditioning is part of the rehabilitation of the building that would help in its preservation. But the point I really want to speak to is the elevator. After a certain percentage of remodeling, doesn't that become a requirement to make the building ADA accessible? And that may be something that would make it fall within the purview of the.
I agree that it does. I have no, it's required. I can't imagine that we haven't hit the threshold already. I'm actually kind of surprised.
Well, we've been I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. There is some leniency with historic buildings. You're right. We should have tripped it.
You have to apply for that leniency.
Building. And so we've been given some slack.
Did you apply for that leniency as Ed asked you?
No,
Fred?
No.
Then you don't officially have that leniency. And it.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so.
No,
I mean,
but I have been through this with another historic building, and it is dependent upon the, shall we say, the mood of the building inspector. Since I have the floor, if I could take a minute, I think it's absolutely essential, Fred, that you make sure that we get your comparisons to other venues, because the not being a numbers person, but simply reading your presentation, it seems a little bit lacking in detail. And I think that the addition of your comparisons would make that much more effective. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yes, and that's why we put it together. Yeah, that could be a good ad.
Al, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I think Ed covered part of it, but a comment on the elevator. Yeah, I thought the same thing. We should have that because of ADA. So whether or not it's called for, it still might be a good idea that it fall under the use of the building. Also, you could make a strong argument for the space conditioning to get that stable and which would keep the building in much better condition than cycling it hot, cold, over the years ahead. So just a couple of thoughts.
Well, the Masonic room and the ceiling there is a great example of that, where it's a very valuable in that it's the only original historic surface. And it's, it gets a real steep cycle of heat and cold, because we can't really afford to heat it with the electric baseboard up there. We did it for 6 weeks, and it was something outrageous, like $1,800 for 6 weeks. So we just didn't have the money to do that. But yes, that does help with the condition of the building as well. Yes. So what we put together with this reduced amount is really what we consider the essentials. There's no garden in the back with the library. There's no rebuilding of the monumental stairs. There's no woodwork being restored, which, it needs, but it's not a have to have. And those are the ones we really looked not to do, and try to get it down to really what is essential for the financial and physical health of the hall.
And to me, all things that you cut sound like more appropriate uses of CPC funding.
I don't know. I'm not saying I disagree, but we've got a goal in mind, and that's.
Anybody else in terms of comments from the team? at this point. So I have just a couple thoughts that I've jotted down some notes. One, it sounds like if you were present for the last presentation, Fred, and you might not have been, but we had a presentation from the community gardens, and in it was literally an itemized by 2x4, the cents, the cost, the price, all the way down that foots to the amount they asked for plus a contingency, so that it was very crystal clear to me. And I know that project scope are very different, but the principle still needs to be the same. I have sensed with these questions and comments from the CPC a routine of I have general or lacking specificity, or I don't have the details that I'm looking for. And I guess some of the examples would be, one, we still, and Steph, we have not received the final construction docs yet that we paid for from May in 2022.
Well, we haven't we have paid towards it. We have not received the final document, so there's still payment outstanding. I mean,
I should have said commission. So so we'll need those. We have to have those. And then I think, like the team is pointing out, it would be helpful for me to understand the first column is all the things we'd like to do, the cost associated with them. The second column are all the things that we're not going to be doing, the cost associated with them. And the sum of those two columns should equal the estimated 10 million. We'll use that as a round number, because that specificity helps us appreciate. I think Amanda and Ed both made a valid comment. I can't validate it, though, without the detail of what they just pointed out, which is I need line item detail, cost associated with it, what we're doing, what we're not doing. That will also help Stephanie go back to town council and say, here's what they're proposing to do. Have we now passed some threshold of inappropriateness where the parking lot's $1 million, the ask is $4 million, it's a 25% parking lot project? Does that now tip this into an inappropriate use of CPC? And Amanda, I know you, Amanda, I can say Ed, I'm not sure, but I know Amanda at least will also, even if it's appropriate, there may still be discussion as to whether or not the CPC wants to fund it. So I think, I always like to give the team something that only they have to legally engage on. So I would ask for that detail breakout. We just have to have definition going forward that will enable us, I think, to engage quicker and more meaningfully. The other question that will go hand in hand with that, Fred, is I think we also, the CPC will ask for, and team, correct me if you feel differently after I say it, but if we're going to invest this money, we need to know in advance if that triggers ADA compliancy. If there are ADA compliancy costs that are not in the money you asked for, I think we would all like to make sure that you have a very defined concrete plan, preferably money already in hand, way for how you're going to pay for those things. So in other words, if 4 to 5 million triggers ADA compliancy, and now you have to upgrade bathrooms, you have to upgrade handrails, you have to upgrade all sorts of things, and that's not contemplated in your ask, then we're funding a project with a deficit. And I don't think we are keen to do that.
Yeah.
Does anybody in the team feel differently?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Fred. Does anybody in the team feel differently in terms of the appropriateness of understanding that ask? Okay, just wanted to make sure, because I mentioned speaking for the team, and I don't ever want to do that if y'all don't. Fred, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to.
No, I cut you off. My apologies. Basically, ADA compliance is an elevator. We're also asking to get proper egress on the first floor. There's one room that does not have two means of exit. So that will also make it more accessible to get out. So there is a lot of what we're doing in the elevator and related things relates directly to handicapped accessible. As to rails, I'll double check on it, Tom, but that was something that did not escape us,
Yep. And so Stephen, sorry.
This is not at all my specialty, but I recall when the Children's Museum I think it was just replacing windows, and it was triggering Architectural Access Board requirements that would require major updates in addition to the elevator upgrades to the bathroom. Are the bathrooms already accessible and compliant?
Yes, there is an ADA compliant one. On the first floor is ADA, handicapped accessible bathroom is there. We have the ramp to the first floor. There is, yeah, it is. There's one bathroom up on the stage that is obviously is not, because you have to go upstairs to get to it. But yes, there's ADA accessible bathroom in there. Yes,
So
the first floor is completely accessible for handicapped. And I think a lot of people don't know that.
So Stephanie or Wayne, I'll ask you as planners, what's the right mechanism to ensure, like, do we go and ask for an unofficial review after we get these details by a town employee who goes in and does a building inspection? Or do we ask the applicant to do a private consultation with a contractor who does this review for them? I would ask, how do we as the CPC gain confidence that?
So, Tom, I'll talk to the building inspector. My understanding is when applications are submitted to the building inspector, they have to list out what the costs are, what the repairs are, everything that's being contemplated and covered by the permit. And they have to put the costs to that. And then based on, I believe it is a dollar cap or a percentage of the value of the building triggers that accessibility requirement, the architectural access review that Amanda referenced. But I will confirm that with Kevin Greiner. We will get.
I'm sorry, just to jump in. Currently, it's very hard to put a value figure on the hall, you can see for obvious reasons, but it is carried on the books as being about $2 million. So you can see we're way over 100%. And my understanding, and I could be wrong, was 30% is generally the trigger for ADA.
That's right.
Yeah, but we're probably not saying, Fred, and I just don't want to say it because I'm not an expert, is I would expect that you would be triggering an ADA compliant requirement. Therefore, in order for me to support this with a vote, I would want to understand the mitigating requirements of the ADA compliant process. So that way we can say, look, and I agree with Amanda, I have had some dealings from a capital investment perspective, that we did not do the investment because of the ADA requirement. And so I just would want to have comfort that the CPC had all of the information to assess what that ADA compliant requirement might be.
Okay, and on another point, if you want to give us 10 million, we're very happy with that. I think what we sensed from the December 2022 meeting was that it was somewhat discouraging. It was that, well, this is going to cost 15 million. A lot of other projects won't be able to go forward. It was really from that sense of the meeting in December that we decided, well, look, let's not go up in front of town meeting, lose a vote, lose another year. Let's go in at really getting just the essentials. So that's our strategy. If you have 10 million to give us, that's great. We'll go for it.
I'll let the rest of the committee answer that. But what I would say, Fred, is I'm surprised you wouldn't have reached out to ask that question before changing your letter of interest if you thought that was the committee's sentiment. I think I recall it differently. I think that it wasn't about the dollars that were being asked. It was about the preparation, detail, and engagement in the materials that we were provided at the time to support such a request. And I feel candidly the same way today. I feel that there is
what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is I feel that there is a lot of lack of specificity for items that we specifically have asked for that would help us understand the project's viability, true cost structure. And I'll give you two examples that are simple. One is if it's the same dollar ask and it's a year later, I would really encourage you to assess the cost structure, because we know from other large size projects that have gone on, the average increase that's expected from most project managers is 9 to 10% each year of cost structure.
Right.
So I think your 10 million may actually be 11 million. Not sure. We have to see the documents that we are waiting for from the Spencer Group.
Yeah.
And the other items that are good examples, and just in terms of details, the letters of support from the abutters. I know for one, the library is a very important abutter, given the fact that you have whether it's this scaled down version with just a parking lot or a quote unquote connected campus that they need to opine on and make sure that their concerns are addressed. And these are things we've asked for. I would just like them to come rather than this much period of time past, us continuing to still ask for them. So I feel like we're putting out the path of breadcrumbs, and I think we've been pretty thoughtful about that path and consistent in it. I would echo the sentiment that was raised in the private world, and not that this is that, but it does speak to where I come from. We would not be asking for funds if there was without a transition person on board, because we would want to know both the current leadership in alignment and the new leadership to make sure we are all aligned around what the vision is and agreed upon for such a large sum of money. So it's a timing thing. I appreciate the sentiment is there. It's just after. I would look to, when giving funds in the private world, it would never pass that muster. It would be, look, if you're only here for that period of time, how do I know I'm going to get the return long-term, many decades out of what we're trying to accomplish if I don't know who that next leader is?
Could you run that by me again?
Yeah, so I'll lay out a scenario which is very similar in pattern. We go in a private way, in a business perspective, and I say, I would like to get $10 million investment to go build this new business. If I said I wouldn't be there in a year, that person who funds it from a capital perspective would say, okay, if you're not going to be here, I need to make sure I get the return on the 10 million. Who's the next person that will be here? So that I can appreciate that they're aligned with what you're selling me, what you're telling we'll get as a benefit. And then that way we have both the current leadership, which is invaluable, that adds an incredible amount of insight and shepherds it through. And then you have the new leadership who picks up the mantle and carries it forward after that.
So how would you plan to do that?
I think the same way you wrote it out and we talked about it, you start with, what does that person's job description look like? Who would they be? I think what I'm just pointing out, it would be helpful.
What is your timeline? What is your timeline?
Right. It would be before the ask. So before the giving of the money, you had the alignment of here's what the new structure looks like, and here's why it provides X, Y, Z that you're committing to either in the business plan or verbally here.
All right. So you would like that laid out as to the structure of the jobs, all that sort of stuff, when we plan to have someone come on board, who's going to be searching for it, the town's involvement in that, which we would like to have. All right. That's fine. That's something we're in the process of doing right now. So that's good.
And I think what I might propose to the team, I sense a list of items that I believe we would like to see before we can review the draft application. That list would include a comprehensive breakout of the costs, for example. I'm not sure if the strategic business plan, I believe that was referenced earlier, also carries weight to understand the competitors and the competitive environment. But what I would propose that we would come up with a list that we would ask the applicant to provide before providing a draft application for our review. So we know that the materials are ready and available for our discussion, and that will enable a thoughtful draft application review. Okay. Does that make sense, or does anybody have a different process proposal or discussion point? So does nobody have, is that just acknowledge if it makes sense and that's good and we can work on that list. Good, thumbs up, thumbs up. All right, so I just wanted to make sure that made sense. And so what I'll do is, I think we have I think those are good lists. Obviously the construction cost docs, the split out between this ask and future ask, the ADA compliance would be one, updated transition plan, I think would be helpful. The town council answer to the questions about the parking lot would be helpful. I would ask Fred if you need to go back to your team to understand whether or not, because of the year delay, the application should be updated for an increased cost structure.
Tom,
Yes, almost, go ahead.
I think we need a list of the things that are not included to improve the building, and they might become issues in the near future.
Could you say that last part one more time, Alice?
A list of the things that are not included in this that are real preservation of the building that might become an issue not too far in the future.
Agreed.
Yeah, it might be helpful to have, okay, these are the, these are the things that are, clearly historic preservation. These are the things that are kind of in the middle between, like I'll use air conditioning as an example. There is a preservation reason and a commercial reason to have it. And then another column with and these are the things that we feel we have to make the hall, need to have the hall be a viable entity.
And would that be both for the 4 to 5 million of ask for this year and then the 4 to 5 million of being put off? So I think that would be 6 columns total.
Because it's, besides me saying over and over again, I don't think I think this is a questionable use, particularly with respect to the parking. I also have heard as many times, we need to know everything that needs to be done at once, so we don't have to keep doing this over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, Tom, if I could for a minute.
Sure.
To be done all.
I was just going to echo what Amanda just said. My understanding was that the town and the CPC was looking for the entire project. So this was one, if it were to move forward, all the work that needed to be done to preserve the hall would be done. And then the hall would move into this position, and during the course of the repairs and the restoration work, the hall would be preparing to be in a position to then be able to maintain the hall going forward. So to Amanda's point, it wasn't keep coming back for additional work in preservation.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to echo what Tom said about the abutters. I do recall the abutter in the house next door. I don't recall what project it was, but being very vocal at town meeting. And I've lived here long enough to recall the litigation with the library over blasting for back there where the parking lot is proposed. So there will be people who remember that as well. So I'm very curious to hear the library's stance on it. Although at this point, I suspect they might be in favor of more parking that they would benefit from. But I do recall that being an issue, that the blasting was going to damage the hall was the allegation, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yes, it was. Yeah. And there have been proposals for different methodologies to doing it. Can't remember the techniques, but it would address that issue of shock waves going along the ledge and destabilizing the hall.
So Amanda, I just missed your 3 categories, and then Ed, I'll pass the mic to you. I think one was genuine historic preservation. Second was
a little bit of both. And third was economic viability of the hall as a hall.
So what I might do, I'll ask this, certainly not tell, but it might make sense to get the full list of all the efforts. And I wonder if that ask has to be brought, all of those items need to be brought before town council. I don't know who could slot it, if that makes sense, Amanda. Like, for example, the parking lot might be economic viable, but it might be a non-starter because it's 20% of the project, and that's too much.
I haven't looked at the opinion in 100 years, but my recollection is the case that I looked at. My faint recollection was that it was kind of like an accessory to, like, well, of course, like if you have a park that people come to, you need a place for them to park. That to me seemed very different from a 60-car parking lot to ameliorate a lot of the parking issues in Northeastern Village.
Would it be okay, Amanda, if I take your recommendation and just make it 2 steps and make your recommendation the second step, but I'm proposing the first step be just list out the $4 to $5 million of projects now, the 4 to 5 million that we put off, we get that list and we share that with town council. who may be able to give us some guidance of where items fall on your 3 buckets. And then maybe we could use town council as a first pass to bucketize those numbers. And I think the applicant has a right to see that as well. But I know if I get the list, whoever puts it together, the first thing I'm going to do is to ask town council to bless it.
And all it would take would be one abutter, who could hold this up for years and years and could possibly win.
Yeah.
Because I don't recall there being a wealth of case law out there on this issue. This, again, not my main area of practice, but I recall enough being like, I'm not sure about that.
Would you be okay, Amanda, under the proposal I just made of let's get the full list of the 4 to 5 and this year and the 4 to 5 future, and then we'll start to bucketize it afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that way the applicant knows what to go and do, and we'll put it. Fred team will put this in a list of requirements before we can review a draft application. But hopefully, again, we just listed off several of them, this being one of them.
Okay, when will that be due?
I would, so the onus will be on you. When you get it done, that's when we'll be able to consider your application.
What are your expectations?
I don't have any, Fred, but what I won't do.
What would you prefer?
I guess where I'm going with it, Fred, is some of these asks have been existing for over a year. So letters from the abutter, that's nothing new. So we're going to basically put it back on your shoulders that you need to go and do this work. And if you're able to satisfy the window for our normal review, then we'll do that. If you can't get it done expeditiously, then it would be a next year request.
What is that? What is the window?
It's pretty quick. We can give you that, but you'd have to turn stuff around, Stephanie, Wayne, in the next month.
Is it January? Is that the window is open till January sometime?
Our calendar concludes, and I don't have the calendar handy. Wayne or Steph?
Well, I think we may be doing the same thing. I'm going to see if I can find it and pull it.
It's either December or.
I've got our review calendar open.
Yep.
And we're looking at the last round, the final applications being reviewed. Looks like at a February meeting, preferably at a January 11 meeting, with February as the absolute last.
Yep. So that's a final application review, which means the month before has to be the draft, so December. And we'd have to, I just want to look at the calendar, but I guess I'd say really quick. You'd probably want to use the next month to do all of the research, compile all the materials, get all the documentation. I'll commit to within the next week getting you the full list of the asks for the CPC. I have to be thoughtful about how to put the full list together, let the CPC team members review it, and make sure that we don't have a serial deliberation or a non-posted public meeting. So I may have to connect with you, Stephanie and Wayne, after the fact to get that list together, but I don't want to just send a list from myself. And then we'll just have to look at the schedule that we have out.
All right.
If this is at all helpful perspective, the review calendar would have Oaks Ames letter of interest and an invite in September, with the draft application due November 1 for the CPC to review that draft application November 16, and a final application December, I think that's 13. So that's the timeline that we had set up initially.
Got it.
That's only 2 weeks away.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I would think it would be difficult to comply with some of the requests in a 2 week thing.
Yeah, maybe we can push it a month. Full disclosure, I need to say this: the letter of interest was after our deadline, and we're a bit delayed. So I think we're trying hard to be accommodating. But at the same point, I don't think it's appropriate for us to jam it in, so to speak, to make it happen, so to speak, without the due diligence. I think all the points that you all raised tonight were valid. Many of them echo points that were previously raised at prior meetings. And so I think that they're still valid. I don't think we can rush it through given the size of the ask and the scarcity of the information that I think we're looking at. Ed?
Two quick points. Number one, Amos mentioned the idea of things that are going to become problems in a fairly short run that should be included in this ask. And one of the things that you left out of the current proposal are the stairs, which are dangerous and deteriorating. And I think they should be included.
Are you talking about the Olmsted stairs or the interior stairs?
The Olmsted stairs. Yes.
All right.
And the other problem that I have is I thought I understood the governance of the hall, and then reading the specifics of the presentation, now I get it. And the fact that we're increasing the number of so-called public members of the board is kind of it's not a particularly useful thing when the private members of the board still have a total majority over everything. And I'm going to find that a problem, I think, in supporting the future of this proposal, simply because the board has, or the hall, or the whoever wrote that proposal is essentially proposing to do the same thing that they've always done, which is weddings and public meetings and a concert here or there. All wonderful things, but it's nothing new and it's not specific. And I just am concerned about turning whatever amount of money we're going to vote for that to a group of people where the public has very little control.
Well, Ed, I've given this thought, and you're not the first to raise that. However, you're just assuming that our 7 always vote one way and the townsfolk always votes the other way. And that's just not how it works. I mean, there's going to be people back and forth all the time with one side, as quote unquote. I mean, I even hate to say one side or the other. But you cannot assume that the 4 vote is always 4 and the 7 always vote is 7. And that's just not how it works.
Well, it certainly works that way when you choose officers, because the 4 public people are excluded from the choice of officers.
Yes, because as it stands now, the board is it has the management of the building.
No, I understand why it's there. I just don't like it.
Well, I think what we're really trying to solve, and it's a very legitimate issue, is transparency. Now, if you have 4 board members there who are at all meetings, all committees, see all reports, that is what we want, is to have that 100% transparency. And with 4 board members sitting there, that will be assured. And I know that is a big concern, and I think a legitimate concern. And we felt that would address it.
What was the outcome of the idea of having meetings where the public would be invited?
Annual, once a year. If you have them quarterly, my God, you're going to spend all your time preparing for meetings. And then, you need a year for things to take shape and everything. Then the public comes in. And in a sense, the public is in if you have 4 town board members. I mean, there's everything that happens inside those walls goes straight out. There's no secrecy. There's total access. So
appreciate it.
That's yeah.
So
And
I
that's-
think
that's
at
what we-
at a certain point, thank you, Fred, Ed. I think you raised good questions, Ed. Good replies, Fred. At a certain point, Ed, I think we will reserve the right to deliberate on our own in terms of stipulations of the agreement of the funds. And if we are able to come to a mutual agreement before that happens, that's great. If it doesn't, we as a CPC can put in what we believe are the appropriate stipulations. And if they're not agreed to, then the funds don't transfer. If they are agreed to, then we're in alignment at that point. So there is a debate that can happen after the fact. But I do believe this dialogue is important. It helps us see the issue through the applicant's eyes. So I believe that that discourse is appropriate. But I just want to ensure you, as you well know, we reserve the right at a certain point to deliberate on our own and create our own memorandum of understanding or agreement.
Yeah.
Anything else, team? All right. Fred, I commit on the CPC's behalf to get a list of items that we would like to see before we would look at a draft application. We'll lay out a proposed timeline that hopefully works for all. I do need to see what the flight pattern is for all the projects to come, so that we can try to determine where this might slot and to give you a reasonable expectation on timelines and deadlines.
No, that's fine, and I'm very encouraged from this meeting. We really, you've outlined a path forward, and that is very encouraging. So, thank you.
Appreciate it. Kristen, Tim, thank you for taking the time to appear and be present. It's welcome and appreciated. All right. So team, just to recap for our half, while we cycle off those people and get ready for our next business item, which is the update on the Pond Street and Island, and then we have the membership dues to vote on. So I think we have Steph. There we go. Good. And we can cycle off Kristen as well.
I don't see her.
She's still there. The name's still there.
Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. I have to change my view, I guess, so that I can
I wonder if you, by the way, have the setting of hide non-video participants set, because if you do, that could be why you might not see those people.
There she go. Well, there she's back.
Okay. There we go.
Bye, Kristen. Thanks again. So just so that everybody knows, and Wayne, Steph, you have to keep me honest. I don't know how to necessarily, I don't want to do the wrong thing. I propose to list out the items that we believe we need to have as a CPC completed and in our hands before a draft application is reviewed. I'll take a first stab at that. Steph, can I send that to people in a BCC and get their feedback for missing items to append to the list?
So the way it should work is you send that to us, we will send it out, and then we will collect the additional items.
Great.
Then we can send, I think then we can send it to you so you can review it. I'm
Okay.
trying to think if you want to do like a fun, I think that would work.
That sounds good. So team, just pay attention to your email box, if that's okay, from Steph, because I think you have to go person by person to get what somebody recommends to be added, so the next person can review it to add, or no?
If that sounds like a little bit like serial deliberation.
Okay, then scratch that. Expect an email from Wayne and Stephanie. It'll have a primary list. Add items you think are missing that you would like to see added. We'll review it and get it over to the applicant.
I think the big thing that all members should take from this is never, ever, ever reply all.
That, yes.
When you see an email about this, only respond to myself and Stephanie.
Yeah.
Because replying all turns into a
Yeah.
meeting violation.
And use the BCC feature to make sure we don't inadvertently do that. So Steph, Wayne, when you send the email, put all of us in BCC.
I don't think that, I think if you do a reply all to a BCC, everyone who's on the BCC
will not get it.
We'll double check, but
Yeah, we'll
I
check
think it
that.
should be
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, I can tell you in my world, the beach is heavily utilized, and you
Yep.
do not get, you will not see their replies.
Okay.
I can tell in Amanda's world that probably holds true too. Okay, my tooth is killing me, so I'm gonna stop talking. Could you walk us through, Stephanie Wayne, the Pond Street update and the board business?
So Wayne, will you walk through the Pond Street?
I can try to take a quick stab at it. As folks may remember, there was the memorandum of agreement signed, which relates to the town's purchase of a conservation restriction. That's what the MOA is, between the town and the trustees of reservations, with the conservation restriction being agreed upon and recorded and everything being done by the end of last year. There were delays working out the property transfer and signing a purchase and sale with the family trust, between the trustees and that family trust. The conversations have moved on more productively. A purchase and sale has been signed, and it is going to be, the property I'm told is going to be, the closing date is early November, I think the 7th or 8th. And so therefore, with this new property closing timeline, to keep things clean, is a proposed amendment to the memorandum of agreement to extend it through, I believe, the end of July of next year. The purpose being it's after the end of a fiscal year, and it gives enough time for the state's Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, the folks who review conservation restrictions, to actually review and sign and approve. Back when I worked in the conservation restriction for a nonprofit universe, it would be several months for the state to actually do the review and signature. So that timeline, I think, is reasonably fair. We have a draft CR that we've reviewed, have a few minor questions, and we're sending that on to town council as well for their review. And so I think the question before the board is to approve the proposed amendment to the memorandum of agreement, extending it through the end of July 2024. And that vote would be a recommendation to the select board to
Right.
sign. I believe
We don't
Dottie is the
approve,
signature.
we don't
Yeah.
approve or govern the document, but it is good form for us to indicate our approval of that extension. And I do want to point out for two reasons. One, because I think it just applies to good discipline, and two, because it was listed in the documents sent out regarding the Oak James Memorial Hall in terms of questions that I had posed. So I just want the CPC to know, and I mentioned this in a prior meeting, I did reach out to our contacts at the trustees and expressed our displeasure that we had set a deadline of 12/31/22, and here we were approaching third quarter of 2023, and we still had not had resolution. That displeasure is certainly voiced at both parties, both the trustees and the owners of the property, the Ames family, which is why in the letter of interest information on the hall, I asked Fred about that. And where I'm getting at is, I do believe it shows a pattern of the ability to deliver a project based upon the times and parameters that we set forth, if people don't achieve the timelines that we've all committed to. Is this extra time the most egregious of all sins? Of course not. I'm not saying that, but I do feel like we have to make sure we watch out for patterns where projects are given a timeline and they don't happen, and it requires us to follow up to get feedback and get them completed, as opposed to projects that we provide funding, we get regular updates, we're communicated to regularly, and we don't have to chase anybody. I think that factors into requests. So that is, and we're also following up on getting the construction docs that we funded with the May 22nd meeting. So we continue. What I want to make sure the applicant appreciated was I started to see a pattern, and that's why I put it in the questions I asked about regarding the letter of interest. So with that, I do appreciate working with our contact at the trustees. She's been incredibly responsive and engaging, especially when I expressed that the CBC would most likely make this an article of discussion at today's meeting. So it was nice to see it come together very quickly, so that it would have a favorable outcome. I personally have no reservation against the extension of the MOA now that the PNS is signed. I think it lets people do the right work that they need to do, but I just wanted to give you that additional background.
Tom, I had a quick question. What wasn't back a year ago? I believe David Ames was in a real rush to get this done. Otherwise, we were going to lose the deal and it was going to be sold. So how did it just, here it is manifesting a year later? And but to your point, we have to be good steward watchdogs, I guess, with patterns.
Right.
Extremely.
I can't answer that, John, but I would encourage you to ask that of the applicant when they come before us again. I know Fred was a member of that and would have firsthand knowledge of those conversations.
Will do.
So with that, I'd take a motion to recommend that we accept the proposed MOA timeline change.
So moved.
Lee and Varela. I will go backwards, starting with Amanda.
Aye.
Al.
Aye.
Amos.
Aye.
Dennis.
Aye.
Meredith.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
And Tom is an aye, so that's unanimous. How much is the cost of the membership dues this year?
$4,350.
Love it. Ed's on it, and it's probably in the packet. I just didn't make it that far. I think we talked about this last year. Everybody was unanimous last year. But I will ask this year, does anybody have any questions or thoughts about the membership dues to support this worthy cause?
No, I think it's a great thing to do, and you've got my vote.
All right.
Money well spent.
No questions. I'll take a motion to, I'm assuming you need a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Amos was quick. Love it. Ed, second. Going around the opposite way. Jim?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
Amos?
Aye.
Al?
Al, aye.
Amanda?
Aye.
And Tom Broussard's an aye as well. And with that, I know it's been a lengthy meeting, so I'll offer the option to people. Do we want to push the MBTA community zoning to the next meeting? It's not a mission critical, time sensitive, I don't think, Steph. Or is it brief and we can give a quick update now? And please know I'm going to go on mute, and maybe I don't think I can go off camera, but my tooth is killing me, so I desperately want to rub the cheek.
So it will take at least 15 minutes for me to go through it. And then if people have questions, so.
Yeah, we can wait.
Okay.
I've had a root canal and this has been exhausting, so I can't imagine.
All right, perfect. I have no items not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I appreciate the extra time tonight, team. As always, just great questions and appreciate your engagement. You're always spot on. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And
I
like
think that
16
was
people. So Dennis and Amanda, because I saw her lips move as well. Jim,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Meredith,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Amos,
Aye.
Al,
Aye.
Amanda.
Aye.
And before I say aye, Stephanie Wayne, I know that you prepared to present, so I appreciate your efforts. Hopefully, I'm sure those efforts won't go to waste and they'll be able to be put to good use next time. So thanks for doing the work, getting ready for tonight, and we look forward to the MBTA info next meeting. And with that, I also vote aye for a unanimous adjournment.
Tom, could I just say, and if anyone has any questions about it and wants to give us a call, we're happy to go through it individually too. And again, we look forward to doing the presentation at the next meeting.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for your understanding. I hope you have a great night.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Feel better.
Thank you.
Yeah.